Welcome to another episode of Dear Parents. Today is really exciting. I don't get to talk to a lot of founders or people that have started companies that actually support kids and parents and families, but today I do get to. I'm talking with Lauren Picasso. She is the founder and CEO of Cure Hydration. And I'm excited to get to chat because this is something that it comes up a lot in families, is the question of, how do I keep my kid hydrated? What do I do if they're having a GI bug? Do they need extra electrolytes and hydration when it comes to sports? It spans the entire pediatric spectrum, and now even into pregnant moms. And so I wanted to get her on to talk about Cure, to talk about kind of where things started and how everything came into play and what Cure is trying to do to help in the hydration realm. So Lauren, maybe if you could just take us back to the beginning. Where was it that you said, okay, there's a gap here in the hydration market. I'm not happy with chugging Pedialyte or whatever you were using. Kind of share us that story of how you started Cure.
Absolutely. So I've been an endurance athlete my whole life. I grew up running cross country and track. I was a swimmer and later started getting into races. So I signed up for my first triathlon with my brother back in
Okay.
2017 and found that I was really struggling to recover from my workout. So I'd come back from these long runs, especially when it was hot outside. And I'd get these almost flu-like symptoms. I'd get headaches. I'd feel really nauseous. And I really just couldn't find anything on the market that wasn't full of added sugar. So at the time there were, many fewer options. If you would, if you signed up for a race and you'd run past the mile marker, it was always Gatorade and just stuff that had a lot of artificial ingredients in it. So even though I was drinking plenty of water, I realized I really did need electrolytes to replace what I was losing, but just couldn't find anything out there that I felt good about drinking every day. So I did try Pedialyte. Pedialyte was very effective. But if you look at the ingredients, it's got, a lot of added sugar, a lot of artificial ingredients, just things that I didn't feel comfortable, making part of my daily ritual. So I started diving into the science behind hydration, discovered a formula that's called oral rehydration solution, or ORS. And it's actually what Pedialyte is based on. So it's been a formula that's been around for over 50 years. It was originally developed by the World Health Organization in the 1950s. And it's really quite simple. It's just this perfect balance of sugar, glucose, sodium, and potassium. For me, that was the big aha moment. It's okay, here you have this hydration formula that has tons of clinical research behind it. It's proven to hydrate as effectively as an IV drip, but I had never heard of it. None of my friends had really ever heard of it. You're a pediatrician, so of course you have, but it just didn't feel like there was a lot of education out there around proper hydration. And so my vision for Cure was really to reinvent that formula, to, use an effective formulation like a Pedialyte or other ORS products in the market, but with much better ingredients. So the base of our formula is coconut water powder. We love coconut water because it's a naturally occurring source of glucose. There's no added sugar in our formula. And it's also very high in potassium. So we don't need to add any synthetic potassium. And then we're using pink Himalayan salt for the sodium source. Pink Himalayan salt is something I use a lot in my cooking. It's full of trace minerals and other good stuff. And it's a lot less processed than a table salt. And then other than that, we're just using real fruit juice and organic flavors to help make the product taste great. So the product is quite simple. It's all natural, non-GMO, but really, just as effective as any other ORS product out in the market.
Well, I think when I think back to my training, when I was in pediatrics training, we talked a lot about ORS because there was always the question of, this kid comes in, they're dehydrated. How can we rehydrate them? It's hard to get an IV in. Let's just put together kind of an oral rehydration solution. And then why are they in the hospital if they're just getting, oral? So we got to put an IV in them or something along those lines. But we know that when we can rehydrate through the gut, that it gets absorbed better. It improves things faster. It's better for the child and better for their gut. And so as I'm reading and seeing, this is based on ORS, which has a lot, has decades, like you said, of research behind it, and also has been used around the world to keep children and adults hydrated, especially in areas of the world where they don't have as many resources and they're relying more on whatever fluids we can get available for them and to rehydrate kids that have, diarrhea illnesses and all those sorts of things. So I was excited to see that. And I think that Pedialyte has been one that people turn to But it sounds like for you, there were some things in Pedialyte that you're like, I think we can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pedialyte and a lot of the other ORS products in the market are, using artificial
Mhm.
forms of sugar, processed forms of sugar like dextrose. They have artificial sweeteners as well,
Right.
like sucralose that, really like nobody should be drinking, let alone children. And then have artificial dyes as well. So like
Right.
red 40 and things like that. So I just felt that there was an opportunity to really clean up that formulation while still providing an effective hydration
And how
product.
did you decide, okay, marathon or, like long distance running, triathlons, all those sorts of things? How did you say, okay, this has helped in that realm? What about Cure Kids? Like, how did the kids part come into play in that kind of discussion or the evolution of what you created?
It really happened organically. So we launched in 2019 and we actually very quickly found that our core customer was a
Okay.
millennial mom. So most of our customers are anywhere from the ages of like 25 to 55. The majority are parents. And it honestly wasn't like ultra
Sure.
marathoners or anything like that. It was really just customers looking to drink more water, wanted to just add some extra flavor to their water and make their water work harder for them. Our customers are certainly very active, but they're more likely to be running, a
Right.
few miles or getting on their Peloton. But we constantly were getting this question of like, is this safe for my
Mhm.
kids? And parents were really wanting to use the product for their whole household. And kids were asking them, like, hey, can I drink some of your cure? And so we started talking to pediatricians. We actually realized that our existing product is perfectly safe for children, but we wanted to make a product that was specific to children's
Sure.
taste profiles. So we wanted to let them have their own product. So we did a lot of really fun focus groups with friends and families who had children and made sure that all of the flavors that we developed for our kids line were kid
Awesome.
approved. So we had them all fill out their own surveys. And now we're launching a lot of, kid specific flavors that you probably wouldn't find in our adult line that are coming out later this year. Beyond that, we worked with several pediatricians to make sure that the product is something that they would
Right.
approve. So we do say the product's pediatrician approved, and it's something that they would recommend in their own practice. So that was really important to us. And then the last thing, we actually ended up carrying this over to our adult line, but something that came up a lot in the research we did was
Mm.
allergies. So, allergies are on the rise with children. A lot of parents wanted to make sure that the product was allergy
Sure.
friendly. So we actually test all of our products, every single lot for the top 9 allergens to make sure that the product does not contain any of those allergens. Additionally, we're doing a lot of testing. So heavy metals is something that's come up a lot. So we test each lot for heavy metals to make sure that we're in the Prop
Sure.
65 guidelines for lead and other heavy metals. And then also our kids line is Clean Label Project certified. So we did, go out and get a lot of other certifications and do a lot of testing. We decided all of that was actually equally relevant to our adult line too. So now we're doing it across all
That's amazing because
products.
I think, going back to what you had said before at the beginning of that answer was that, parents are often asking, like, can my child drink this too? And I think at least what I see at soccer games or playgrounds or those sorts of things is can I have a drink of your water bottle? And so it's nice. And you haven't experienced that yet, but I know you're expecting in a couple of years, your toddler will be trying to drink out of your water bottle all the time. So it's nice to know that like you don't have to be like, nope, this is just for adults. They can have a sip of that too if they need. I think when we
Exactly.
think about soccer games or football practice or track and field events, I mean, you just instantly think of the like neon orange Gatorade and things along those lines. And I
Yes.
think Cure takes a different approach to hydration. Maybe you could just talk from like a physiologic standpoint, what that looks like and why it's not just all natural Gatorade or something along those lines.
Exactly. So ORS, the way it works is it's just this perfect ratio of glucose or sugar, sodium, and potassium. And when you combine those three things with water, this product really helps absorb water and electrolytes more efficiently than water on its own. Something like a Gatorade, a lot of the sports drinks out there are actually so loaded with
Mhm.
sugar that they can be
Mhm.
dehydrating and they can almost be as, bad for you as a
Sure.
soda. So even though they are marketed towards
Right.
sports, I mean, they're really more of like a carbohydrate replacement. So if you're, looking to get carbohydrates really quickly, sure, like Gatorade could provide that for you, but it's not necessarily going to be hydrating especially with some of the, Gatorade has a lot of different types of
Hmm.
products now, but some of these beverages might have like almost 40 grams of sugar
Right.
a serving. And so something like an ORS is going to be just a more effective solution to help your kids retain those fluids. And kids do lose fluids a lot faster than adults. So it's important to, not only have a product that helps them drink more water because it tastes good, but it's got, the right electrolyte balance that's going to help them hold on to those fluids for longer and rehydrate faster.
Dive in a little bit more on the kids dehydrate faster than adults, because I don't think that's something that a lot of necessarily realize, but I think it's really important when it comes to, especially we're coming up on summer right now and it's going to be hot outside and those sorts of things. So talk a little bit more
Yes.
about that if you could.
Yeah, there's a few different things going on. So kids have, their kidneys are still developing, and so they might not be as efficient as conserving water as adults. They also have a higher body surface area relative to their size. So those might be some of the factors that might, cause them to lose fluids faster than adults. But the other thing is they might just not recognize, all the
Sure.
signs of dehydration the way an adult would. And if they're younger children, if they're sick, say they're a toddler and they get the flu or something like that, they may not be able to communicate that they're thirsty. Or by the time that they recognize they're thirsty, they may already be in a state of dehydration. So there's a lot of different signs you
Sure.
can look for, of course, in your kid. If they're lower energy, if they, seem to be tired, more tired than usual, if they have dry lips, there can certainly be things you look for to see if they're dehydrated. But yeah, that is one of the reasons why, staying on top of hydration is so important for kids, especially if they're active. So if they're
Right.
playing sports in the summer, they're out in the heat, anything that's really causing them to lose, a lot of fluids. If they're traveling, that can be dehydrating, being on planes, or of course, if they're sick and losing a lot of fluids that way, important to rehydrate
Yeah, I
them.
think that that's one thing that a lot of parents don't realize is there's different levels of dehydration, but oftentimes when we're seeing kids, they're not like they're still peeing about like usual or that hasn't caught quite up yet, but they'll be more tired, they'll be lower energy, or they'll be more irritable. I see that a lot when it comes to dehydration. It's just kind of
Yes.
like this floppy but irritable kid is telling me from across the room that they're dehydrated and that we need to catch up on their fluids before things get more significant. Then I think in athletes, it's a little bit trickier to know because they're usually older and hold it together better than the dehydrated toddler does. But I guess one question that springs to mind is how do you decide when we should switch from our water bottle to oral rehydration? Like obviously, like it's not going to be every time that we're carrying a water bottle, we're going to put a little thing of cure in it, but
Right.
there's some specific circumstances. So how do you advise parents? When is it a good time to say we need to catch up on our electrolytes, when we need to really focus on rehydration versus just bring the water bottle?
Yeah, I mean, so, water, of course, should be like the number one hydration, solution. You should be drinking water throughout the day. But when you need a product like Pure or ORS is really when you're going to be losing a lot of extra fluids and electrolytes. So those specific situations would be definitely when your kid is sick, if they have a fever, if they have diarrhea, they're not only losing fluids, but they are losing sodium and potassium as well. If they're playing sports, they're sweating, they're outside in the
Mhm.
heat. Similarly, you want to replace those electrolytes. The main electrolytes in Pure are sodium and potassium, and that's really designed to mirror what you're losing in your sweat. And so, it's important to replace what you're losing, especially if you're out in the heat or playing sports for a long time. The other use cases would be travel. So that could be something that where you're, maybe losing more electrolytes than normal. So those are some of the like the key use cases I would say that I think are really important to consider an electrolyte product. And then I also think, yeah, like products like Cure taste good. A lot of kids, don't love
Right.
drinking water. So even just something like, instead of giving them a juice or a soda, giving them a Cure to help encourage them to drink more
Yeah, I think
water.
the flavor and the color, kids love colored things. Those help because my
Yep,
real underlying goal is to get you rehydrated rather than just like all sugared up. And so if we can get them something
exactly.
that they like that also helps to rehydrate when we know that they're going to have increased losses, whether it's being outside, whether it's playing hard, whether it's a hot day, or whether it's something like an airplane, which is a great example that I don't think people realize like how drying flying is, like planes are low humidity, airports are all inside in low humidity. There's lots of reasons that you can get extra dehydrated and not realize it on the plane, which then irritable kids on planes is everyone's favorite. And so I think those are other good opportunities to definitely be like, okay, let's get you something that you like that isn't just a bunch of sugar that's then going to make things worse at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Now, let's talk a little bit about, so we talked about Cure, like where it came from. We talked about how it's specifically designed for kids as well. I guess one very nuanced question is, you've got 2 Cure packets. One of them says Cure Kids and one of them says Cure. Either one can be drank by parent or child. Is that correct?
Exactly. Actually, one of my favorite flavors is the kids fruit punch, and I drink that all the
Got
time.
it.
So the formulation in terms of efficacy are, really exactly the same. So it's really just kid-friendly
Awesome.
packaging.
Okay,
and
that's good to know,
flavors.
because I think a lot of people on the go might just have one or the other, and it's
Yeah.
like, can I drink this or can my kid drink this? And that's good to clarify that, like both works for both. One specific area where I always really struggle to help families get rehydrated is in vomiting and diarrhea, GI bugs, which are going around now. They're always going around. And typically I'll tell them, go get some Pedialyte, go get half strength apple juice. But it is really nice to have the little Cure packets because they're so small and you can have them so easily on the go versus a huge jug of, apple juice that you then have to dilute in half, or a big bottle of Pedialyte with all the other stuff that we already talked about for Pedialyte. So that's been really helpful for me to be able to advise parents to just like keep these at home, keep them in the diaper bag so that you have them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great for traveling. It's, since there's no liquid, it's TSA friendly, it's lightweight. You can, have it in your purse. So it's a lot more portable, a lot more convenient just to have a few packets with you at
Well,
all
what we've been
times.
doing is we have been putting together these little boxes. It's kind of like a pencil box that you would get on the first week of school, but it has Band-Aids, it has, ibuprofen, it has all the different things that parents often need, and giving this to our patients. And it does have little packets of Cure in it so that they have something, because
Love
everybody's
it.
kids start vomiting or having diarrhea at 7 or 8 o'clock at night or at 2 in the morning. And then they're running to the store to try to figure it out. So we've actually intentionally packaged those into all these like little parent boxes that we give to our patients so that they kind of have the pharmacy stuff that they need on hand when the situation arises.
That's
Now
great.
let's
I
talk
love
about
that.
the OB market, because that is a newer development.
Yes.
And we know that pregnancy makes you vomit more. It makes it harder to keep up on liquids. I had to my wife really likes Sonic Ice. And I don't know if you're familiar with Sonic Ice, but it's
Okay.
like that little pebble ice. So
I'm not like the crushed ice.
like
Yeah.
pebble ice, yeah. But you can buy it at Sonic. Like you can go to Sonic and get a big bag of it. But we had to invest in a pebble ice machine because it was really hard for her to just drink water while pregnant, but she could chew on ice. But now Cure is an option as well when it comes to pregnancy. Tell me more about how that evolved and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I developed the product originally for
Mhm.
working out, for, doing my long runs. And I have to say, now that I'm pregnant, I'm
Mhm.
8 months pregnant. I have never been thirstier. There's like really nothing that has ever even come close. So I'm drinking a lot more water, a lot more Cure. And it's so important during pregnancy to stay hydrated. I think, definitely in third trimester, you're much more likely to
Mhm.
get swollen. So keeping up with that hydration is really important, especially, if you are, dealing with morning sickness as well, vomiting. It's so important to not only replace just the water, but the electrolytes that you're losing too. So yeah, it kind of similarly kind of came up organically. Like all of my friends who've ever gotten pregnant, or a lot of my friends who are breastfeeding, say that, Cure is an absolute miracle for them to help them drink more water and retain fluids. A lot of my friends have packed Cure in their
Sure.
hospital bags. Some have claimed, and I don't know if this is true, but that like Cure helps them with increasing their breast milk production. So we wanted to start, really figuring out if, this is a market that we could go after. It's already very much aligned with
Yeah.
our customer. Like I said, a lot of our customers are moms. A lot of them are, going through fertility journeys. They're pregnant, they're breastfeeding, and then of course they're giving the product to their kids. So similarly, we, reached out to a number of OB/GYN and worked with them to get the claim that we are safe for pregnancy and breastfeeding. So we always knew we were safe for pregnancy and breastfeeding, but really wanted to have that
Right.
stamp of approval from OGYNs. Again, wanted to make sure that it was something they would recommend in their practices.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference is that when you can say, like, we've done the science, we've done the work, because a lot of times, especially in the, health and wellness space, a lot of people will just make claims. And it's easy to just like
Yeah,
say this did exactly what I needed to do. This cured everything that was ever bothering me. Most people have bought enough stuff off of Instagram or TikTok to realize that like there isn't some vitamin that's just going to completely change your child overnight or give you all your energy back. And then it makes it easy to kind of be dismayed when it comes to all of these products claiming everything. But you've done the legwork of going
right.
through all of the different certifications that you already talked about here, but also, making sure that obstetricians were okay and supportive of using Cure to keep pregnant women hydrated.
Exactly. Yeah, we wanted to really make sure that from a doctor's point of view, that the product is safe for women who are pregnant and breastfeeding, and that pediatricians felt the same, that the product was safe for children
Now, what
too.
about pediatricians? Because I know a lot of pediatricians aren't yet aware of Cure. What is your message to pediatricians when it comes to thinking about Cure within the space of like Pedialyte, the apple juice, admitting to the hospital for IV fluids, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, we want pediatricians to see this as a natural alternative to something like a Pedialyte or Gatorade. So we're just as effective as Pedialyte and any other ORS product on the market, but we have much cleaner ingredients. So I know ingredients are becoming so much more
Mhm.
important to parents. Parents are trying to avoid artificial sweeteners and dyes. So I think that Curate's a really great alternative for parents looking for something that, not only is effective, but that does have clean
That's
ingredients
really
as well.
important, I think, to a lot of families too, that realize that like a lot of their food is full of stuff that they don't want or isn't for their best on a regular basis. And so knowing that you've gone through that work is huge. And I
Yeah,
think really reassuring for families too. And it also shows that like it's possible to have things that taste good for kids that are colored in a fun way without resorting to all the ultra processed ingredients that people are trying to avoid.
exactly. And if you're, also trying to establish a habit with
Mhm.
your children, ingredients become even more important. If this is a product you're drinking every day or multiple
Mhm.
times a week, you want to make sure that the ingredients are really going to be good for
Yeah, and I
them
think
long
that
term.
one thing that I will try and have families do is like before your kid gets the GI bug, let's establish what they actually like to drink so that when they're in the midst of a GI bug, they don't end up in
Yeah,
my office for dehydration and we have to send them to the hospital to get IV fluids or something along those lines. We already know they like, this flavor and do well with this flavor. So it could be something that we're even practicing in advance to keep them hydrated, but then also to just set that up for once you get a GI bug, because everybody's going to get GI bugs from time to time. Parents text us every day about their kids vomiting and diarrhea and those sorts of things, that it makes it really easy to say, okay, they really like this specific flavor. They really like the fruit punch. Let's make sure and get some of that on board early so that we can keep them away from the danger zone of needing to be hospitalized.
and hopefully make the experience better if they have, a favorite flavor of cure that they already like. Then it's something that they're going to look forward to, even though they're not
Right.
feeling so great.
What else do you want parents to know right now that are trying to figure out, like, how do I decide what is the best approach for my family when it comes to all the different things that are out there in the hydration space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely important for your kids to try the product, for families to try the product in their household, make sure that everyone likes it, and then really just find the use cases that work for their families. So is it just an occasional use case when their kids are sick, or is this something that they really want to be? Their kids are super active and they really want to be drinking this on a more regular basis. So I encourage like parents to get a variety pack, try a lot of different flavors out, and just see what
And I
works
think
for
one of
them.
the things too is when you're talking about like the adolescents that are, school sports aged or those sorts of things, I think that is a great age to show them how they feel if they are dehydrated versus well hydrated.
Yeah.
Because then once they realize, oh, like I'm not as foggy, I'm not as tired, I'm able to, perform better at sports and then go on to get a better night's sleep or all those sorts of things. Once you can kind of show them what that looks like of being well hydrated, then it helps them to take accountability for that and take some responsibility for themselves to be like, hey, I think my body is telling me in all the ways that I'm dehydrated right now and I need to reach for my water bottle or for my cure, whatever it might be.
Definitely. Like once kids are teenagers and getting really into sports, especially if they're
Mhm.
competitive sports, they care a lot more about their performance. They're paying more attention to their bodies. So I definitely think that's a good time to let them try out the product and see if it's making a difference in their performance
Well,
and
thank you so
recovery.
much for one, putting this product together because there weren't a lot of other good options
Of course.
before third came around. I mean, we had the old staples that kind of left a lot to be desired. And two, thanks for sharing and chatting about kind of where it came from and how parents should think about it and working so hard to get it, certified across the board so that parents can just have one less thing to worry about and deep dive on when it comes to, is this safe for my child or for me if I'm pregnant or whatever it might be. So thank you.